Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
I'm Mark Golub. Welcome to part 2 of my meeting with one of the leading scholars on Arab society, Arab thinking. It is my pleasure to be sitting with Mordechai Kedar. If you were with us last time, you heard this extraordinary man discuss aspects of the mentality and the thinking of the Arab world, the structure of the Arab world. You heard him describe his plan for
8-state solution.
He has an 8-state solution.
Emirate.
Basically Emirates that would have Palestinian sovereignty, 1 in Gaza and 7 throughout the West Bank. And he tried to explain why he believes that's the only real solution to a Jewish state living in any way alongside an Arab state, Palestinian state. And he is helping us understand the complexities which most American Jews and Americans in general, we just have no clue. And I told him the first time, and I'm telling you again, I wanted you at this table so badly because you bring a perspective and an insight that we never get to hear. So welcome back, and thank you for being willing to join us again. I want you to talk for one moment about the Muslim Brotherhood and the extent to which, not the Arab world, but I want to know the extent to which the Palestinian world, and again, Mordechai, the way we experience it, there are 2 factions and only 2 factions in the Palestinian world, Hamas and Fatah, and that the Palestinian Authority is some overarching body that represents most of the Palestinian people, and then you have this sort of this wild terrorist group that has hijacked Gaza and is imposing its will on the Palestinians of Gaza. And what we hear all the time, Mordechai, is that Israel wants the Palestinians of Gaza to see the success, the economic success of the Palestinians on the West Bank, so that the Palestinians of Gaza will throw Hamas off and take the Palestinian Authority, and then Israel will be able to make one peace with one united Palestinian world. And when Mordechai was with us last time, he spent a great deal of time trying to explain that there is no such thing, except in some, in what he calls the state, Qatar and some of the other Emirate states, that in general the Arab world, in his words, are a failed system of colonially imposed states, which are not states at all, but are conglomerates of all these individual Arab tribes, Muslim tribes, which are at war with each other. And what you said that I also found so interesting was the reason why dictators were so important in Iraq or in Syria was that the dictator somehow was able to maintain order among all of these disparate tribes. But what I want to understand again from you is the extent to which the same model exists within the Palestinian world. You spoke about it a little bit last time, but I want you to, again, there may be people joining us for the first time, talk for one moment about the nature of the Palestinian world, and what do you say to me as an American who hears all the time, there's Fatah, there's Hamas, we're going to get Hamas out of there and there'll be one unified Palestinian entity with which Israel can then make peace.
Well, this is what happens when you try to understand politics without understanding the sociology. The sociology, which is much more important in the Middle East than politics, politics actually is the victim of the sociological problems. The sociology of the what so-called Palestinians is fragmented tremendously between tribes, or clans actually, who live in separate places. They don't mingle with each other, they don't get married with each other, they don't move to live in each other's place, and their cooperation is very shallow on the political arena, but not in the social arena at all. And this is why creating a united Palestinian state with Gaza, let me when Gazans, Israel allowed the Gazans to go to study in the West Bank, in the universities of Najah and Birzeit, for example, near Ramallah, in the 90s, after the Oslo Agreement were signed. Those Gazans paid the tuition and went to Birzeit to find out that no one in Ramallah area, Birzeit, Ramallah area, will rent them not a house, not an apartment, not a room, not a storage in the yard, and not even a doghouse. Why? Because they are from Gaza. As they say in Yiddish, nicht kann unseres, means not from us. So tell me now that they are a united people. Okay? It doesn't work. The girls from Hebron have no option to marry boys either from Ramallah or from Nablus or from Hebron or things like this, because there are different cultures, different families. And if you send your daughter to marry somebody from there, they will abuse her because they are nicht kann unseres. So this is how they think. So this is the problem. They never constituted a nation. Just like in Syria it didn't happen, just like in Iraq it never happened, just like in Libya. Never those tribes and ethnic groups and religious groups and sectarian groups made a nation which everybody sits around one fire and sings Kumbaya together. It never happened. And the same thing never happened in the Palestinian Authority. And this is why, in my view, a Palestinian state will end up like Syria, like Iraq, like Libya, because the sociology is the same.
Was Oslo a mistake?
Oslo was built on a dream which never existed.
I don't understand how Israelis could get it so wrong.
Well, some Israelis also dream. Look, you know what? Let me tell you something. I highly recommend to read a book by Shimon Peres, who was one of the leading figures of the Oslo Agreement. His book, New Middle East. Read it. I highly recommend to see how a man hallucinates about area which doesn't exist, about states which is only in his imagination, about to build policy on air as it was actually leads to the Oslo Agreement. Mm-hmm. And this is why these agreements never worked.
I'm wondering whether somebody's going to be watching you, the first program with you and now this one, and say something like this to themselves. Mordechai Kedar must be some kind of right-wing crazy Jew who doesn't understand that at the core, all people are the same. They're parents with children and they want the same things for their children that American Jews and Americans in general want for their children. And that what Mordechai Kedar here is painting a picture where, for religious reasons and sociological reasons and historical reasons of tribe and clan, the Palestinian people are seen as different kinds of human beings, and that therefore you are guilty of some kind of distortion. How would you answer that kind of criticism?
Well, you know what? If you go to Japan and you sit with crossed legs, nobody will buy from you a pen. You go to the hotel, you pack, and you go away because you are a savage. You are uncivilized only because you sit with crossed legs. Can you understand this? If you go to Africa or to South America in some places, people are walking there in some tribes totally exposed or almost totally exposed. So what? They look at you as some, why do you wear so many clothes? Why the heck? Okay, we look at them in our view. They look at us from their view. And definitely we don't understand.
But these are styles.
No, these
are cultures. What about the basic wants for yourself and your children?
You know what? Let me tell you another example which exists about the Middle East and here. If, let's say, a 16-year-old girl starts dating with boys, what will her mother do? She will go with her to the doctor to write something that at least she doesn't get pregnant if she has relations with boy. But definitely in order to save her from problems. Okay, in the Middle East, what happens to a 16-year-old girl who starts dating with boys? She will be slaughtered because she brings shame on the family.
Literally?
They call it mahwil ar, means erasing the shame with the blood which will burst out from her vein when she will be slaughtered. This is the standard attitude to a girl, 16 years old girl, who start dating with boys, and there is some kind of a rumor or suspicion that she has sex with them. This is the standard attitude in the Middle East. So what is this? This is a different culture. Here, we give the daughter of 16 years old freedom. There, they cannot even fathom such a freedom to a 16-year-old girl. So what? Isn't this a different culture? Here, for us, the life of the 16-year-old girl is much more important than anything else, including her virginity. Mm-hmm. In the Middle East, if she loses her virginity, she should better lose her life first before she loses it. So this is a different attitude to anything which is sacred in life or profane.
Mm-hmm. A moment ago, you said you'd like people to read this book by Shimon Peres.
Yes.
Your suggestion was it was wildly unrealistic. I wonder how you would answer anyone who would say to you, I understand this idea of 8 emirates, but Mordechai, we live in a real world. The Palestinian people are never going to accept it. America is not going to accept it. You told a story about that as well. And so, as idealistic as it is, and in your plan, I want to make sure everyone understands, you're giving up sovereignty for these 8 emirates. It's not like you're saying that Israel should control it. No, you want to give up parts of the West Bank to Palestinian sovereignty, and you believe that could be a workable solution. But there was somebody who would say to you, what world are you living in? That's never going to happen. The West is never going to accept it. The Palestinians are never going to accept it, because the Palestinians are using at the moment the misunderstanding of the West and America to their advantage. You know, you show us this map on this cloth, and show it again. Here you have a map where basically all of the land west of the Jordan River is Palestine. There's no Israel there, because ultimately, as you explained to us last time, the Palestinian mentality is there's no difference inside the Green Line or outside the Green Line. It all belongs to the Palestinians. It all is Muslim land, and there should be no Zionist Jewish entity anywhere on the land. And so, on the one hand, you know, how do you really come to suggest something that is so unworkable? And the other thing that you also have to address for me is, when I hear you talk, it sounds to me, not in your lifetime, not in your children's lifetime, not in your grandchildren's lifetime, never, unless there is a sea change of mentality in the Islamic, Arab, Palestinian world, without a sea change, there's never going to be a, quote, peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. So I'm asking you 2 questions. One, what's realistic about your plan? And Mordechai, is the bottom line for you that when you're talking, you know, in private, I've never asked, do you have a family of your own?
Sure.
Betach. You have a wife?
Wife, 5 children.
5 children.
9 grandchildren.
Mazal tov. Okay. What's your wife's name?
Raina.
I'm sorry?
Raina. She was born here in this country.
When you speak to Raina, do you say to her, Raina, there's never going to be peace? Ultimately, Israel has to figure out a way to exist in this sea of hatred and chaos, because the American plan, the European plan, that's just nonsense. And the reality is the Palestinians are intent on this map existing forever. There will never be an honest, peaceful solution. Those 2 questions. What makes your plan realistic? Is there any plan in your mind that will ever work?
First of all, don't forget that Israel has peace, rather steady peace, with 2 Arab countries who are, in this view of Islamic issue, not so much different from the Palestinians, Egypt and Jordan. The peace with Egypt and Jordan was based on the fact that these 2 states, or more of this, the leadership or the rulership of these 2 states, Sadat in Egypt and King Hussein in Jordan came to the conclusion that they cannot erase Israel from the map. They tried it in 48 and they failed. 56 failed. 67 failed. And even the surprise of 73 did not bring Israel to its knees. So Israel is invincible. And this is why they made peace with Israel. Only when they understood that they cannot defeat Israel, they made peace with Israel. And this is peace in the Middle East. Peace in the Middle East, unlike in the West. In the West, peace is being achieved when two sides decide to leave the war and to sit together like grown-ups and finish the problem and look forward. In the Middle East, peace is achieved only when one side succeeds to convince the other side that for the other side's good, he should leave me alone. Should leave me alone. Otherwise, I will devastate him. This is when peace is achieved. When one side is invincible, he gets peace. Peace, not peace for love, hugs and kisses. It's peace which is built on deterrence. While the others, his foes and enemies, are deterred, they will give him peace. It means leave him peace, leave him alone. This is peace in the Middle East, in the mindset of the Middle East. This is what Israel can achieve. It achieved it with Egypt. We achieved it with Jordan. When the Palestinians understand that this is the end of the game, and all they get is Emirates, and the whole Israel is behind it, and America understands it finally, because America started to understand the mindset of the Middle East, this is where this solution can be implemented. But this is the right thing to do because it's based on the sociology and the mindset of the Middle East. It is not based on dreams or peace plans of all kinds of things which are tailored by people who are clueless about the Middle East, as they proved. And you know what? Let me tell you something. Recently, the American administration started to tailor a security program for Israel, security plan for Israel, if Israel withdraws from most parts of the West Bank, as they call. And this peace, this security plan was tailored by, I think, 100 or 200 American generals, means professionals in security. Great. And they want us to accept this. When I read about this, I say, okay, I would accept it, but formally, I would like to see what security plan these people tailored for Iraq or for Afghanistan. And after I'm convinced that they know the material in the Middle East, I will start buying from them peace plans for Israel or security plans for Israel. So far, no American can prove that he knows his right from his left in Afghanistan and Iraq. So please, learn first about the Middle East, about the mentality, about how people feel, what people want, what really they want. And you will never reach what they really want unless you learn Arabic. And from materials which are translated to English, you know nothing. Mark, would you accept any research done about the American society by somebody who does not speak English, cannot read English, cannot listen to what people say in English, cannot interview people in English, cannot interview people at all because they don't speak another language which he speaks? This is mediocrity in the good place. Would you accept something about France by somebody who doesn't speak French? This is impossible. But when it comes to the Middle East, everybody becomes an expert because he read something in English. Excuse me. This is how they learn about a religion or about a region. This is totally impossible. And this, unfortunately, what time and again, Americans fall in this trap. And you know what? The problem with Iran, the failure with Iran for 17 years of negotiations, which brought nothing, is the result of the ignorance of Westerners in general, Europeans, Americans in particular, who are not familiar with the way how Iranians think. They think from the mentality of the bazaar, of the merchant. They think like politicians. A politician in the bazaar is no better than the merchant. He is worse. So, in time and again, you're another one. Oh, now they speak sincerely. How do you know? How do you know what they think? Maybe they are in some kind of taqiyya. deception, maybe, or not, I don't know. But people here in America are naive to think that if somebody smiles to them, like Rouhani, the president of Iran, he's a nice man. He studied English, and he wears a necktie, and he has a jacket. He's modern like us, you know. Okay, so let's cut a deal with it. This is what these naive people think, that if he says something, he means it. And this is the problem, that once and again and again and again, people fall into the trap which the Iranians put in front of them. And meanwhile, the Iranians gain time to develop their nuclear military program. And then one day they will find that they have nuclear bomb, because people fell asleep on guard. And when we have already some good sanctions, which might bring them to the conclusion that they should give up on their nuclear military program, all of a sudden people are scared out from the sanctions. I have no idea why.
So what you're saying is the Palestinians will make peace if they believe
this is the end.
It's their only option.
It's the only option.
At the moment, the Western world is giving them many other options.
Even Israelis, unfortunately, who are still asleep and didn't wake up. And by the way, you asked me before about my personal issue. When I was released from the army in 1995, I was rather in the left, for various reasons connected to what I knew about some problems in Israel. I was a member in a peace organization named Netivot Shalom, Paths of Peace. I gave peace a chance, and I was demonstrating with them, and I thought the two-state solution is the only solution. But little by little, I discovered from what people were telling me that this is only some kind of fig leaf to cover the real intentions, which are this. And when the Second Intifada erupted, I understood that the whole thing was deception. In order to bring a Trojan horse into Israel, which Arafat definitely said it clearly to one of his big friends, who later revealed it, Abdelbari Atwal. But he already had the signs. The Oslo agreements were signed in September 1993. In July 94, the Palestinian Authority was established. When Arafat came, he brought us beforehand list of people which he wants to bring from Tunisia. Israel went over the list, and Israel erased from the list people who were terrorists. And Israel told him, you don't bring this, not this, not this, not this. When he came with his car, in his trunk were two people. In his trunk were two people who were denied the right to come to Israel. You said that you didn't know. Okay? And he got over with this. Rabin could tell him, you are a liar, go away. Everything is void, your signature is not serious, go away. We didn't do it. In October of that year, 1994, he went to a worldwide tour in order to collect support to the Palestinian cause. He came to Johannesburg in South Africa, and he stood in a mosque, and he spoke about this agreement. Somebody in the crowd stood up and asked him, how could you shake the hands of those Zionists, the Jews, and give them peace? So Arafat asked him, what did our prophet do in Hudaybiyah? The minute this man heard this word Hudaybiyah, he sat down satisfied. What does it mean? Hudaybiyah was a village between Mecca and Medina. The Prophet Muhammad, he ran away from Mecca in 622. See, it is the hijrah, the emigration. 6 years later, in 628, when he thought that he was powerful enough to conquer Mecca, he took his army to Mecca to conquer it and to Islamize the people by force. The Meccans had good intelligence, and they knew about his intentions, and they came out and met him near this village named Hudaybiyah between the two cities. And when he saw this army of the Meccans, he understood that messing with them will be devastating for him. They were big and armed and trained, and he signed with them a peace in Hudaybiyah for 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days, 999. And he came back to went back to Medina. They went to Mecca, and they waited for 2 years to see his intentions, whether he's serious about this peace or not. After 2 years, he didn't attack them, so they believed that he will give them peace for almost 10 years. They went to business, to Asia Minor, to India. They were merchants. But he had also good intelligence. When he knew that they went to business and left the city with the old men and the ladies, he raided Mecca in the year of 630, 2 years after he signed the peace agreement for 9 years, 9 months and 9 days. He burnt all the idols, Islamized whoever, slaughtered those who didn't convert to Islam, and this was the end of the peace. Now, he was directed by Allah. He was infallible. So Muslims learn from him 2 things. The first thing is, if you cannot conquer the infidels, if you cannot defeat them, you give them temporary peace. This is okay. The second thing is, when Allah gives you the ability and the opportunity to conquer them and to defeat them, even within the time of the temporary peace, you are allowed, according to such you must, violate the agreement to do to them what you should do. After all, why did Allah give you the opportunity and the ability? So you should take advantage of it. So this is what they learned from the Hudaybiyah peace. When we signed the agreement with Arafat, he considered it as a Hudaybiyah peace. Means temporary peace, which will be there as long as the Israelis are strong. 2000, we withdrew shamefully from southern Lebanon after what we had with Hezbollah. He understood that the Jews came to a degree of weakness, that if he starts a new intifada, they will run away from the West Bank and maybe from Israel entirely. And this was when he finished the agreements, started this vicious war, this Oslo war, and everybody knew that he is behind Hamas and behind the jihad and behind the Aqsa martyr regiments, and all those organizations were working according to Arafat's hints or implicit orders, explicit orders. And this is what the Second Intifada started in late 2000, 4 months after we withdrew from southern Lebanon. He understood that the time to violate the agreement came, just like Muhammad in the year of 630. Therefore, in my view, the Oslo agreements were violated totally by Arafat already in 2000, 15 years ago. And Israel had all the reasons to tell the whole world, guys, those agreements are void, the Palestinian Authority is void, Arafat should return to Tunisia, all these gangs which he brought from Tunisia should go away, and everything is void, and because he violated it, not us. He opened this intifada of 2000, which cost the life of 1,000 Israelis. 1,000 Israelis fell victim to this deception of Arafat. But unfortunately, Israel was forced by some leftists in Israel and by the world to continue making face as if the Oslo agreements can be saved after Arafat killed those agreements by his own deeds. So this is what we are today. Those who canceled the Oslo agreements were the Palestinians before the Israelis.
In America, Mordechai, there are Jews who say all the time that Israel is the problem because of occupation of the West Bank and because of
And the settlements.
Yes, the settlements, exactly right. Settlements and occupation, and the word that's used is brutal. A brutal occupation of another people, and that Israel is not extending to the Palestinians on the West Bank and is not treating Palestinians who are Israelis as well, a degree of what Americans would call civil rights and human rights that in some ways speak to the dignity of the Palestinian, and that this is why the Palestinian is so angry at the Israeli and what is the obstacle to peace. I want to know from your perspective, first, between now and any time that maybe your eight-state plan can work, what should Israel be doing in terms of occupation on the West Bank and settlement policy? What do you want to see Israel do? And are you upset? Does it somehow upset you the way in which Israel is imposing itself through an occupation of the West Bank?
Well, first of all, about the term occupation. How can a nation occupy its own land, which was given to this nation, the Jewish nation, by the League of Nations already in 1920? It cannot be occupied. That is first thing.
But you know the world thinks it is occupied.
Well,
and the world
the world
forgets,
can think that the world is
forgets
flat.
how Jordan, in essence,
Was an occupier.
right, took the land in 48. They remember none of that history. And not only that, people say that history doesn't matter. 67 doesn't matter. By the way, most American Jews, Mordechai, do not know that the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization, was formed in 1964 before Israel ever came into control of the West Bank, and that what the PLO wanted to liberate
It's Tel Aviv.
was Tel Aviv and Haifa
Right.
and every other piece of Israel inside this map.
Right.
It's not about the West Bank, but people don't care. They talk about occupation because as far as they're concerned, the League of Nations isn't relevant, international law isn't relevant. They don't know why. They don't understand that the Green Line is an armistice line from 1948. And but with the Palestinians, as far as the Palestinians are concerned, that line's an accident. And therefore the land on either side of the Green Line, as far as the Palestinians is concerned, it's the same land and it belongs to them. Americans know none of it. American Jews don't know. It doesn't seem like the American administration knows any of this land, any of this history. So the bottom line is, the world talks about occupation because in essence there's an Israeli military presence that controls a foreign population which does not have the right to vote inside Israel and is not part of any polity of an international nature. So the world calls it occupation.
Well, definitely we have a problem of marketing the truth about our rights to the land.
Yes.
Because, unfortunately, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which was in charge of branding Israel in the world, is populated by people who were implanted in this ministry by Shimon Peres, by Yossi Beilin, and by others who represent this view that Israel is the occupier, that Israel is the vicious side. And what do you expect?
I want to know what Mordechai Kedar, an Orthodox Jew, thinks about the way Israel at the moment administers the West Bank.
Okay.
And there are Jews who will tell you here in America, and there are leftist Jews in Israel who will say the same thing. Israel is a brutal occupying power.
Occupied from whom?
They say it because ever since the Six-Day War, the notion is that Israel took land that did not belong to them.
Well, it is wrong.
You're right. It is wrong.
Okay, so what
It is
can
wrong.
if
It
people
is
think
wrong.
that at the time of woman, they are wrong.
They are wrong.
Okay, so
But Israel has not been effective, and American Jewish education has not been effective in explaining why that's wrong.
well, you have to define between essence and marketing. The essence is one, and the market is good, but the marketing is bad. You're right. Israel doesn't have an English-speaking TV channel like the BBC of the British and France 24 of the French. So definitely Israel failed in marketing this issue because those who were in charge of marketing Israel wanted to market the idea that Israel is an occupier in its own land. And this is the problem. And you also asked about the Palestinians inside Israel, the Arab sector. We have 20% of our population Arab. Most of them are Muslims. Do you see lines of people to leave Israel? Okay? What does it mean?
No, but that's not fair, because these Palestinians believe that the olive tree belongs to them, the house belongs to them. Why should they have to leave?
Look, I'm talking about individuals. Individuals can take at any time to take if they don't like the situation.
They don't want to leave their house.
What do you mean?
It doesn't. They would rather live in their house under Israeli control.
Sure, they are, because they prefer Israeli control than Syrian control.
They
or any
want
other
their
control.
House.
Of course.
And are you telling me,
Because
by the way,
Israel
if they
honors-
could have their house under Palestinian control, they wouldn't rather that?
You know, there is a village, a town named al-Fahim, next to the Green Line. There are many in Israel who call to mark the borders between us and the Palestinian state in a way which will annex al-Fahim to the Palestinian state. After all, they are all Arabs, Muslims, and the Islamic movement is actually the Muslim Brotherhood are leading this town. So why not marking the border in a way which this town will be part of the West Bank or the Palestinian state? 95% of the people in al-Fahim objected.
Because?
Because they want to be in Israel rather than Palestinian state.
Because?
In the houses.
But because, why do they want to be in Israel?
Because it is a democracy. Israel lets them talk and say whatever they like. Israel is all the welfare which they have in Israel and all the freedoms which they have in Israel, even to curse the country.
And they appreciate it.
Sure, they live of it. They are more than sure that if they join an Arab state, their fate will be like Syria or in Iraq. So they prefer to be under Israeli occupation rather than living in the freedom of the Arab world, which is like in Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and others which they cannot speak freely because they are afraid of the regime.
Okay. We talked about Israel being the Jewish state, and you explained why it's very difficult for the Muslim Arab world to ever acknowledge that Israel is the Jewish state. Does it matter, Mordechai, whether the Palestinian world ever says, yes, Israel is the state of the Jewish people?
Yes.
Because?
This is the whole thing.
Explain.
As you might know, there are, who knows how many millions of what they call Palestinian refugees from 1948. Once they recognize the right of Israel to be a Jewish state, they actually deny the right of anyone to turn the state into something else. Many of those refugees are not originally Palestinians. They came from all over the Arab world to work in Haifa Harbor, in construction in Israel, in the farms and everything, inside Israel. And in 1948, they ran away to the countries which they came from beforehand. Those countries, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, decided after 48 not to let them go back to their homes in those countries, but to keep them in refugee camps in order to throw them back to Israel and to destroy the Israeli society by this thing. There were these decisions which were taken explicitly, clearly, openly by those countries, never to let those people back to their homes, which they, in cases, still owned in the Horan. This is why they actually carry names, the Horani and Masri and all these things, which testify that they came from those countries. Not only this, during the years in Lebanon, because of the turbulence inside Lebanon, many Lebanese found that the safest place in Lebanon is the refugee camps of the Palestinians. Lebanese. So they infiltrated to the refugees camps because there was free food sponsored by the American taxpayers and free housing. So why living in the cities? We can live in Palestinian refugee camps. So where do they have the right to return to? Okay, I highly support the right of return of all of them to the original states which they came from. the Masri to Egypt, the Fayumi to Egypt, the Horani to Syria, the Iraqi to Iraq, Zarqawi and others to Jordan. Yes, I highly recommend that they have the right of return to the countries which they originally came from before they came to Israel to work in what was then Palestine. So, and this is the biggest lie. And look at this. We are refugees also in Israel. Almost million Jews came from Morocco, from Tunisia, from Algeria, from Egypt, from Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, all the Arab world. Where are they? We absorbed them. They became Israelis. We did not profess our refugeehood. What did they do with them? With refugees. They made them into professional refugees to squeeze the world and to blackmail the world until this very day. And unfortunately, America is sponsoring this by sponsoring UNRWA. This organization is, as you know, dedicated only to the Palestinian refugees, while all the other refugees in the whole world are treated by UNHCR, High Commissioner for Refugees, with totally different rules. You can be a refugee up to 10 years, not a day more. You cannot inherit, you cannot give the refugees to your children. Look at the Palestinian refugees. All of a sudden, they can be refugees for unlimited generations, as big as they will be, and unlimited time. What do you mean? And not only this, according to the UNHCR, if a refugee gets a citizenship of any state in the world, he is not a refugee anymore because he is a citizen. All the refugees, millions of refugees, Palestinian refugees in Jordan have Jordanian citizenship. How come they are still refugees? They are citizens of a state. How can they be considered as refugees? And Lebanon, in its constitution, forbids refugees, Palestinian refugees, from working in Lebanon, being doctors, lawyers, media people, or I don't know what. There are a whole list of professions which a Palestinian refugee cannot work in. Show me another state in the world which discriminates a group because they were born somewhere from working as doctors, lawyers, and university professors. Okay? And what does the world say? That Israel is an apartheid state. We don't have any such a law which prevents an Arab to buy an apartment in Tel Aviv. He can buy as many apartments as he wants in Tel Aviv. An Arab is treated in the Israeli hospitals just like a Jew. Arabs take the buses just like Israelis. So anything which combines or which connects Israel to the apartheid in South Africa, as it was different school system, different housing, different buses, different hospitals, doesn't exist in Israel. But Israel is an apartheid state all of a sudden in the media, in the academic institutions in this country, while Lebanon is left alone with a constitution which does not allow Palestinians to be doctors and professors in the university. Okay? Discrimination, you can name it. Mm-hmm. You know what, Mark, let me tell you something. We both were born Muslims. Our parents corrupted us, according to what they believe. Every person in the world is born Muslim.
But they believe it, don't they?
Sure.
One of the things that we don't understand is that when it sounds so bizarre, when it sounds obviously it is not historical, we tend to say they know they're making it up. They know they're lying. They don't think they're lying.
Sure they don't. Because the history of the world is actually forged by the Jews in order to justify the Zionist campaign. Once I heard in the Jordanian TV a whole lecture by a doctor who claims that the whole Bible was written after 1948 in order to justify the Zionist campaign. Okay, the fact that the Bible was translated to Greek 300 years before Christ, the Septuaginta, or to Latin in the 1st century, the Vulgata, it doesn't make a difference for them. They do not let facts disrupt their theories. And this is the problem with these people.
Again, that's a very different mentality than the Western mentality, which tends to the extent to which it can, it's not always pristine, it tries to draw historical conclusions from as much fact as possible. That's not the way the Arab world works.
Not at all. They have very vague sense of history.
Okay. The one thing I haven't given you a chance to talk about, and I must do that before we can end, is the role of the Muslim Brotherhood. And I want you to understand that there are those in the Jewish community here in America who are very concerned that it's not about whether Obama is a Muslim or not, but it is about the fact that there seems to be, within the American administration led by President Obama, an embrace of the Muslim Brotherhood so that they sometimes are invited to events at the White House. When the president gave his very important speech in Cairo, the ones who were invited front and center were the Muslim Brotherhood. Who is the Muslim Brotherhood, and how does the Muslim Brotherhood play into everything you've described the Arab world is as it applies to the Jewish world and the State of Israel?
Well, first of all, I would refer you to the logo of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the logo is not something which actually encapsulates the ideology. In the upper part, there is the Quran, the book. In the center, there are two swords like this. And in the lower part, there is one word, which is in Arabic, wa'iddu. Wa'iddu is translated to English, and prepare, to plural, as an imperative for plural. This word appears in the Quran only once. So evidently, it refers to this appearance in the Quran. This verse in the Quran, which starts with this word, says, and prepare against them, against the infidels, against them whatever you can from power and bound horses, in order to strike terror into the hearts of your enemies and the enemies of Allah. This is the verse. Means that already the Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded in 1928, already is talking about terror. Explicitly, because this means explicitly. When you take a word which appears once in the Quran and you put it from the whole Arab vocabulary, you take one word which is to be found only once in the Quran, means that this is what you mean. And I know because many people talk about this, because this wa'idu is about to strike terror into the hearts of your enemy. So to say that Muslim Brotherhood is a peaceful organization actually negates what they show about themselves. And this is the only word on the logo. Maybe sometimes people, the Muslim Brotherhood, but this is the only word which is not the Muslim Brotherhood on the logo. This is first. The second thing, the Muslim Brotherhood actually is an organization which was founded in order to implement three things, three pillars. One was to get rid of the foreign occupation. Those days it was the British occupation of Egypt. Second thing is to get rid of the culture of the Western societies, which infiltrated into our Islamic societies, especially when it comes to women's rights, women's appearance, and gender issues. And the third is to implement the Sharia. These are the three basic ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood, wherever they are. Get rid of the occupation, culture of the West, and to implement the Sharia. All the other organizations which we see today, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Boko Haram in Africa, Jabhat al-Nusra, today the Islamic State, all of these organizations follow the teachings of the Muslim Brotherhood, like a daughter organization or granddaughter organization. They take the same idea and they implement it on the ground. Actually, so the Muslim Brotherhood is the mother, the ideologic mother of all the terrorist organizations in the world. Unfortunately, there are some people in this country who think that the Muslim Brotherhood are a peaceful organization, only because in Egypt they were forced to be peaceful by Mubarak, to give services to the needy people, to take care of sick people. Okay, this otherwise they would be hung up, just like what Sadat did to others, or Gamal Abdel Nasser, who hung up the biggest ideologist of the Muslim Brotherhood, Sayyid Qutb, in 1966, because he declared that every Arab Muslim leader who does not implement the Sharia deserves a jihad against him. So Gamal Abdel Nasser hung him up. How can you say such a thing when Okay, so this is the Muslim Brotherhood. Those who call to jihad against any Muslim, any Arab Muslim leader who does not implement the Sharia. So what do you think Al-Qaeda is? What do you think the Islamic State is? The same exact thing, but they do it on the ground. What the Muslim Brotherhood was preaching, they are implementing. What's the difference? And unfortunately, people here in this country do not get it. They think the Muslim Brotherhood are a peaceful organization. However, how come the Muslim Brotherhood became such a popular organization? I think that what happened is that after September 11, America found that there are some Muslims who do not like America. And they started to look around why Muslims do hate America. Either because of what we do or because of what we are. I was asked then by the Homeland Security, and I wrote a paper for this. It is published, you can read it. They got many answers that because of what you do. You support the rulers, you support the dictators, you support Israel, and you support all these people who are oppressing us, like Mubarak, Hussein, Saddam, or the others. This is what the Arabs usually said, because America is behind our enemies in our countries. I said, yes, this is right, but there is another layer, much deeper. They hate America because what America is. Democracy, human rights, profane, not a secular state, and successful. And succeeded exactly where Islam failed, because America succeeded to shape a nation on an idea of the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which succeeded to unite all the Americans to be one, the biggest and the most powerful nation in the world. Islam was founded for this as well, to unite all the Arabs and all the Muslims, the tribes and so forth, and it failed because they keep fighting each other since since Muhammad died. So they actually see America as the opposite mirror. They see their failure from the American success. They envy America. This is why they hate America. Not only because what America does, but mainly because what America is, permissive, materialistic, which everything against Islam. So since they envy America, they hate America before it comes to what America does. Mm-hmm. So they hate America not only because what America does, because what America is. And this is the problem with them. And so America started to look for a group of Muslims who might be peaceful Muslims, not terrorists like Al-Qaeda after September 11. And they found that they hate America because what America is doing. So let's embrace an Islamic organization which is legitimate, which is nice, and we will support them instead of their leaders. This is why it took the American leadership to throw Mubarak under the bus one day after expression of support. It took them one day to throw him under the bus when the demonstration started in January 2011. While when Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood president, was ousted in mid-2013, for months the American administration demanded that he is reinstalled. For months, they didn't give up on the Muslim Brotherhood. And there are many evidence that the Muslim Brotherhood is actually the organization which some people in this country think this organization will save the Islamic world from terrorism. They don't understand that the Muslim Brotherhood are the hub of terrorism already in their logo. Never mind the teachings and the books which they disseminate. And Hamas declares itself as a Muslim Brotherhood organization, and this is a terrorist organization according to the American definition. So what else do you need in order to understand that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization or hub of terrorist organization? But I know the reason. Some Americans are sponsored by Qatar, and like Martin Indyk, as was published his organization, and Qatar is actually the money behind the Muslim Brotherhood and many terrorist organizations all over the world today as well. So when Qatar sponsors American on one side and terrorism on the other side, So what do you expect? That Americans will talk against terrorism while the sponsor is one? So this is look for the money, where the money comes from. When Qatar disseminates terrorism by sponsoring it in Hamas and in Al-Qaeda and many other organizations which allegedly are getting money from Qatar, so what do you expect? That Americans, and Hillary Clinton actually once said that our Qatari friends keep telling us that the Muslim Brotherhood are a good organization. Means all what she knows about Muslim Brotherhood comes from Qatar. If this is how Americans learn, if these are the sources of the wisdom in America, America is in a big problem.
Well, you are just fabulous.
Thank you.
And the insight you share is unparalleled. I can't thank you enough. You're a lovely, lovely person.
Thank you very
Kol
much.
tuv v'hatzlacha in all you do. May you continue to go from strength to strength. Keep working, keep teaching, keep speaking, and please come back. Kol tuv.
Thank you very much.
The thoughts of Mordechai Kedar. Again, there's no one like him on the world Jewish scene. He's a professor of Arabic literature at bar-ilan University in Israel. He's one of the world's leading authorities on Arab culture, Arab thinking. And you've heard him address so many of the issues that we know nothing about. And that, again, I said it when we began the first program together. If we, thinking, caring Americans, American Jews, who care about the future of the state of Israel, who also care about menschlichkeit throughout the world, if we understand more about the sea of the Arab mentality, we can make much better decisions for ourselves. We can discuss it much better. We can speak for the state of Israel better. But it all is dependent upon education, and the best education at the moment one can get on this subject is from Mordechai Kedar. By the way, any of you who are watching, if you're part of any Jewish organization anywhere in America who wants Mordechai Kedar to visit your community, he is on a mission. It's amazing how much traveling this man does, and he will go anywhere and everywhere if he can have an audience that wants to sit and learn with him. kedar.tour@gmail.com. Bring him, and you'll go, yes?
Definitely.
You'll go anywhere.
Definitely.
Well, mazal tov to you.
Thank you very
Yasher
much.
koach.
Thank you.
Mordechai Kedar, you've heard an awful lot in our discussion together. Any comments you have, you agree, you disagree, you have a question for Mordechai Kedar, you email me, I will forward your emails on to him. So please, I ask you, be in touch with me this week. Email me, write me, post on our Facebook wall, or tweet me. I love tweets. I look forward to hearing from many of you. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. L'chaim, my friends, to life.
L'chaim is a presentation of Jewish education in media.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.